Hi, good afternoon. It's obviously a huge honor to be up here on the stage, and I've got incredible acts that I have to follow, and I just want to say thank you so much for having me here. Interestingly enough, I have a tiny bit of history with TED, which I don't think most of you would probably know, although there's a couple people in the audience that might remember. I actually used to cater sometimes for Wyden and Kennedy viewing parties. So right after Susan Hoffman went and saw the first big TED show, she came back and she wanted to share that with her community, and they put on these lunch-sponsored events, and I used to make like sandwiches and stuff like that, and I'd sort of look at the TED speakers and be like, wow, that's amazing, this is so cool. So it's a huge honor and delight to be here with you today. And really, you know, the TED folks did a great job of giving us sort of a question, a prompt to say like, a place to start your talk from is this question, what if? And you know, what's at stake with the question, really, it's about what is possible in our lives, right? What is possible, but not like out there, like in the future, some like unknown possibility, but really what is possible right now, in the present, if we're paying attention. Not like our practice thing, you know, like a lot of us, like you've seen that bumper sticker that's like, this is not practice, right? This is your real life happening right now. So what if is not really the question? What if a more powerful question is not what if, but what is? So I want to talk about what that means to me. When you look at your life like what's in front of you is enough, I don't think a lot of us spend a lot of time doing that, right? Like a lot of us spend a lot of time thinking about like the next thing, or when it's going to get better, or when we're going to have that bigger car, bigger house, whatever. And I propose that if we start to look at what is, like how can we make what is in our life right now, not like in a sort of like accepting kind of way, or like oh yeah, I can just live with this, but like in a powerful, how can I make this thing that I have, these tools, be the most incredible, most awesome thing imaginable? So that comes from thinking about life with a view of abundance rather than scarcity, right? So if we started looking at what we have is enough, and we're not settling, we're going for all the way to totally amazing. I'm not talking about positive thinking. I feel my biggest concern with the talk here today was that I was going to come up on stage and it was going to feel like I was giving you guys like a little pep talk, and you know, kind of falling back onto my like hippie roots and talking about like be here now, be in the present. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not anti-positive thinking. I mean, positive thinking is awesome, okay? I encourage it. But what I'm about is positive action. Not positive thinking, but positive action. So, and that means not looking around outside like, oh, something I need is over here or whatever. Positive action is about like stepping forward right away, instantly. Not looking at what you need to do that, but just starting to do it. So, I actually want to talk about something a little bit food related, because you guys expect me to do that probably. And so, a lot of people ask me, you know, how did you decide that you wanted to become a chef? Like, that's probably the question I get the most. Like, when in your life did you know that you wanted to be a chef? Or how did this come about? And I would like to be able to just answer with one word, but that seems kind of silly. If I could give a one-word answer, I'd say this: souffle. Okay, why? Why souffle? Well, you know, I grew up in Corvallis, Oregon. My mom was a single mom, and we ate a lot of souffle. Now, those things probably don't jibe in your mind, because you're not thinking like, okay, this girl that lived in Corvallis had a mom who made her souffle a lot. Well, I did. Why did my mom make me souffle all the time? Well, because it was the best thing that she could make with what we had. See, we didn't have very much. She actually was left a tiny, tiny bit of money from her grandmother when she passed away, and she decided that instead of going to work, and she wanted to stay home with me, okay? So she made that tiny little nest egg stretch over the first 9 years of my life. Believe me, it was not a highfalutin existence, okay? We were not living in the fancy part of town. We were living in the part of town where people's porches are kind of halfway falling off the front of the house and things like that. You know, our car didn't always start every morning. But, and that's weird to say that I ate souffle a lot, but here's the thing about souffle that you guys might know and you might not know. There's 5 ingredients in souffle. Souffle is butter, flour, eggs, milk, and cheese. Sometimes there's some vegetable or meat or whatever, but it's a simple thing to make. And growing up in the 1970s in Corvallis, Oregon, that was something that you found mostly in your refrigerator already. Here in Portland, probably today, not so much. There's tons of gluten allergies and dairy allergies. But back in the 70s, you could get all that stuff with your WIC card at the grocery store, okay? So what I got out of that, my mom making souffle for me every night, was like, I looked around at my friends. My friends had fancier houses than I did. They had better cars, you know, bigger rooms. And what I had was a mom who made me souffle. And I realized that that was her showing her love for me by doing the best with what she had at the time. And you know what else was cool? Was that a lot of my friends, they wanted to come over to my house for dinner. So part of that had something to do with how I became a chef. It's like, how do you make something with nothing? I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm not really a trained chef. I just decided I wanted to be a chef. I wanted to start cooking. You know, I don't even think I actually decided I wanted to be a chef. I just decided I wanted to cook every day, and that's what I'm still doing. So it's amazing, and it's a powerful place to come from. So I encourage everybody now just to take a second and think for a minute about something in your life where you felt really empowered, where you felt like it was a defining moment for yourself, and a huge accomplishment or a part of your story that's like a success story for you on any level. So just take a second with that. And if you've had a second to think and something comes up for you, I would venture to guess that that something might have come on the heels of a huge challenge. Like maybe something that was totally unexpected, that you ended up making something great out of. See, I don't think that most of the time when we achieve something huge, that it came from something that we were expecting it to come from. I think mostly that stuff is coming from the unexpected surprise. So my family has a lot of kind of background in this area, right? Unexpected surprises, huge adventures. In 1951, my grandparents actually, 1 year after India became independent from Britain, they took off on a steamship across the ocean. They left everything behind, and they had 3 young boys, ages 4, 5, and 6. My grandparents were medical missionary doctors in the north of India for 7 years following that time. And so, the stories that my grandmother came home with of daily existence of life in India, like going to the market, learning how to cook like crazy, awesome, spicy food, and the stories that my dad would put me to bed with at night of, man-eating tiger hunts in the villages and running alongside of monkeys on the way to school. These were stories that I grew up with that were about adventure, and they were stories that were about how to make something totally awesome with not that much. And all of the stories sort of are related in the fact that they're leaving behind something that's familiar and comfortable for something that's sort of like, unreasonable or outlandish. So I think that a lot of us feel this thing in our lives where we have too many choices. I don't know if you guys feel that, but there's a lot of exhaustion in the world, I think, around how much is out there. Like, try to go to this grocery store and all you need to get are a few items, and one of the items is peanut butter. It should be a pretty easy get, right? Not so much. There's 40 different kinds. There's almond, crunchy, salty, whatever. So really, I think that when we simplify our lives and when we start to see what we have right in front of us, we end up being more productive as people. When we don't look for what else is out there, but we look for what's in front of us. So in September of 2007, I opened a little restaurant in the deep northeast corner of Portland called Beast. It's a 24-seat restaurant. There's not much to it. It's just like a little square box in a building with some stuff in it. And let me tell you about what was in it when we opened. We had 2 cooks. We had 2 electric induction burners. We had 1 electric convection oven. And we didn't have something really significant. Flame. We didn't have flame, okay? So we decided to, against the better judgment of probably everybody in the universe, open a restaurant with 0 flame in it. And we actually operated that way for the first 4 years of our existence. Mind you, I honestly, opening Beast was the scariest, most frightening thing that I have ever done in my life. Why? Because I had just had an enormous public failure. So it's like I had started all these restaurants and things got out of control and I went through a messy divorce and it sucked. It was awful. And I think that the craziest thing that I could have done is decide, I'm gonna do this again, right? Let me stand up in front of all these people and maybe it'll work this time, you know? So, but part of the formula in how to make it work this time was about doing what was in front of me with what I was given. So what I had was $50,000. Okay, that's not a lot of money. Would tell you now that that's about 10% of the average budget to open a restaurant in Portland, okay? So suddenly awards and accolades started happening. That's cool. I swear to you, for the first couple of years, I woke up every morning thinking, this is gonna be the day that it's over, and no one's gonna come to dinner tonight, okay? It took a lot for me to get to that place where I started to feel like I was confident. But I came from a place where I was my mom with her WIC card, right? Buying souffle ingredients. And I was my grandmother in the foothills of the Himalayas raising 3 boys. And I was my father, too. My father, who was a 4th-year pre-med student at the University of Oregon, who in his final semester of school decided to drop out of school, okay? This is in the late 60s. He bought a 1956 Ford Econoline van, turquoise in color, because I believe that was sort of the color of the day. And he actually built a jewelry studio in the back of that van. He built a jewelry studio and he traveled around and he said, screw it, I'm not gonna follow the convention. Everyone expects that I'm gonna become a doctor like my father and his father before that. And what I really wanna do is make stuff. So he did it. And it was crazy. And it was successful because he loved it. So going back for a second to that vision that you have of yourself, what was it that was your moment, your aha, your power moment where you decided to start living your life fully? And I'm betting that that was a moment that you could have interpreted in several different ways, right? I mean, maybe you broke your leg and instead of sitting at home, you decided to publish a novel, okay? We make things out of bad circumstances sometimes. So my question to you guys today is, what if we started doing that on purpose? You know, not like breaking our legs on purpose, but what if we started trying to turn stuff on its head? Because, you know, a lot of us, I think, are scared, obviously. I mean, we're kind of taught that you're supposed to go into life and, you know, figure out what you're interested in and get on a path, right, and get a little better at it as time goes on, and then, you know, you retire from it, and then you die, right? So I'm not so sure that I feel satisfied with that, you know? So what is it that we could start working with today? You know, there's a great artist who said something really valuable. And he said, my policy has been that as soon as a system works, it's out of date. I move on, okay? That's kind of counterintuitive in a way, but it's cool because it's like regenerating yourself over and over and over again to stay interested in your own self and what you're doing. That artist was David Bowie, 1977. So, but what stops us from doing that is fear, right? We're afraid, and that's normal. Fear is built into us as humans, right? It's built into us for really good reasons. It's a Darwinian thing, right? I mean, if we're not afraid of that spider over there on the chair, then we could get bit by that spider and die. So we're built to be afraid of things that we're not sure about. And I say that it's time for us to start looking at how do we move past that? Because we have a lot of information that we didn't have back then when we had to be afraid of spiders. We can identify those things now, okay? So it is time to start moving past that stuff, pushing through our fear, because remember, if you go back to that moment that you felt like you were the most powerful, it probably came out of something that you did that you were afraid to do. And so I suggest that we start to do that over and over and over again in our lives to keep things fresh. So, at Beast, after a while, when people started saying, this is an okay place to eat and it's pretty good, the reviews came in, and there was a moment where I just kind of, I took a breath of fresh air and I said, I'm going to be okay. But right after that, I said, shit, I can't be starting to get comfortable. I cannot risk that, because being comfortable is like the antithesis of being creative, right? So in order for me to keep the food fresh and exciting for you guys, I have to scare myself all the fucking time, okay? And that sounds weird, but here's how I do it, okay? Here's the key to how it works. I don't make things that I've made before, okay? I actually redo the menu every week. So if you come in one week, the next week you can come in again and it's going to be totally different. And I don't want you guys to think that you're like guinea pigs for my little experiment, okay? If you come in on a Wednesday night and I've just changed the menu, it's going to be good, okay? It's still, we have some training, I have some really great cooks, and we're going to make it great. But why we do that is we do it to keep it fresh for ourselves. And we go to the farmer's market and we open the door to the farmer's market and we look and see what's around. We don't go with a list like, I wrote this menu and now I'm going to go find these ingredients. We go to the market with an open eye for what looks amazing and what does that thing want to become. We're like conduits for the produce that we see out there in the world, okay? And my suggestion to everybody is that you start to look and see, what it would be like in your life if you stopped dreaming, okay? Again, I'm not anti-dreaming, but what I'm saying is that there's no reason to put it off. You don't have to have everything all together, right? I opened the restaurant without a flame. It's okay, and I mean, actually, just a couple weeks ago, we finally got this really fancy contraption that vacuum seals stuff, I've been waiting. Guess what? It took me 6 years to get it, and I survived the whole 6 years until I did. So what I want to leave you with today is, what is it in your own life that you have a spark for? What are you excited about? And how can you decide right now that what you have is enough to stop dreaming and start being, to be that, open the fridge, see what you've got, and make a souffle.